All right, fellas, your thoughts.
Yeah, well, just we're going to peel back the curtain for a second here. The show was supposed to be over, but Andrew and I mean, we hadn't listened to this interview yet. I know you recorded it earlier, John, but we were texting our group chat saying, "Oh no, like we need to come back on and react to this." Here's the first thing I'll say, and I'm glad that Marcello said this at the very end, where he said, "Look, I'm not trying to be a sunshine pumper, but I'm trying to really give you guys the reality of where this is at." And I think everybody needs to keep that in mind. And I'm going to keep that in mind as I address some of these comments here, because I don't agree with most of the messaging that was put forth in the last half hour. But I have no reason to doubt that that's just Brandon Marcello echoing exactly what he's being told and what he's been told consistently from the folks at the U of A who matter and make decisions. And if that doesn't tell you where this is headed, then, I don't know what to say. But at first I was like, oh, we found the national media member who's marveling at the job Sam Pittman's doing, but he's literally just echoing what he's being told. And it's somewhat alarming, actually.
That was kind of my takeaway as well, Curtis. Like, alarming is a good way to put it. And again, I agree 100% with what you're saying, that Brandon is echoing what he's been hearing. And look, because we made fun of the people that were like acting like it was a done deal last week, saying, oh, so-and-so said that Pittman's back no matter what. Well, that statement, while we disagree with it, didn't come from nowhere. There's a lot of people who feel that way. I'm sure Hunter Yurchek went into this season really wanting to keep Pittman, really wanting this thing to work out. And we talked about this earlier. Why do athletic directors wait until a program bottoms out? Because it's not fun to fire a coach. It's not cheap to fire a coach. It's not something they want to do. So look, I have no doubt that messaging is coming from a real place, but I do, just as an observer of the program, frankly, I'd say as a fan of the program, it definitely concerns me hearing a lot of that, because basically what I'm hearing is it has to be really bad for you to be allowed to be upset and for there to need to be a change. Like, he basically said you can't do it with a bowl eligible Arkansas team, which is, I get the case for it. It just sucks because I'm like, okay, so we're saying if they had lost to Tennessee, then maybe if they hadn't beaten Tennessee, then yeah, we could totally make a change. But since they won that game and they're going to end up making a bowl and going to the Liberty Bowl or whatever, you can't make a change. Again, it comes back to what I said the other day, which is you can make a case to not fire Sam Pittman. Brandon just did it, and he did a really good job at it. We've even kind of played devil's advocate and made that case before, but nobody, national, in-state, local, whatever, can make a case that Arkansas is trending upwards toward a legitimately highly nationally relevant competitive stance. Like, nobody can make that argument. And Brandon even alluded to this himself, that Sam Pittman himself wouldn't even make that argument that Arkansas is building towards trying to compete for championships. Now, look, there's been a lot of years in Arkansas's history where they don't compete for championships. I'm not saying it's championship or bust here at Arkansas or anything like that, but at least there has to be a belief that you're building towards something. And that's why I just strongly disagree with the sentiment that you can't make a change if Arkansas makes a bowl game. Because again, he talked about Sam Pittman wanting to make it a better place than it was when he took over. He has absolutely done that. There's no doubt about that. But that's why I would almost argue this is the best time, when no other team in the SEC is firing their coach, when you kind of have the balls in your court. You have that, what Sam Pittman wanted to accomplish at Arkansas was come here, make it better, leave it in a good place. He has a chance to do that. And so I don't know why that isn't being considered in this equation a lot more.
A lot of this is contradictory. It really is. And I'm with you. I disagree with the sentiment a lot. Here's the disconnect that we've been talking about over and over and over. Fans are tired of accepting mediocrity or being told to, expect mediocrity. But clearly the decision makers are kind of pushing that message and that agenda. I mean, you touched on some of them, but like a handful of things, I just wrote down a couple notes when I was hearing things. I was like, what? And, Sam Pittman didn't take the job to win a national championship. Well, okay. Like, I understand the nuance of that, but then like, what is your ultimate goal as a program now that we're 5 years in? It's not as bad as it was with Chad Morris. Correct. So then if that was his goal, mission accomplished. So then what are we doing at this point? Arkansas could win. They could be a 9-win football team. That's great. I mean, if that's your ceiling, but they're not right now. And so,
they did it 3 years ago.
Yeah, people were getting gaslit for that. The one that stood out to me the most was the biggest sin that Sam Pittman has committed was having early success. Isn't that wild to you? like, damn, he won 9 games, he won 9 games in that season. And now this is tough because how are we supposed to convince people to just accept 6-6 and be okay with it? That's crazy to me that the biggest sin a head coach could commit is being good early in his tenure. Man, that kind of stuff blows me away. Yeah. The whole thing about like, oh, no Power Fives have made a move. And again, like, this is not attacking Marcello. It's just attacking the messages that have been delivered through him here. I would argue that this is the perfect time to make that move then, because then you're not competing for the big fish with other people. Like, it's just so much of this was nuts, man. We're doing the whole thing about comparing Arkansas as a program. Hey, just be more like Oklahoma State and then be okay with it. It's like the epitome of mediocrity is what we're supposed to be okay with here. It's just, man, there's a lot about that just has me going. It was like a reality check for me, I guess, even though, I think we kind of knew a lot of these things. I'm curious to see what you thought, John, as you were listening to that in the moment. But like, I just know how plugged Marcello is.
Yeah.
And so to hear that all coming from him is almost like hearing it come directly from Hunter Yurachek or like the most powerful people at the U of A. And I'm just like, wow, okay, well, this is where we're at.
Bingo.
Yeah. I've heard this a long time and many times about Arkansas and about the expectation and about where they're at and as a program, what they need to be and everything. But here's where also my pushback is towards that messaging as well, because I agree. It's not about Marceau. It's about the messaging. When the NIL came through, I immediately said to myself, I'm like, now Arkansas can finally do something or have something that can make them and help them be competitive against the big boys. I know there's a lot more to it, but when the previous way of how college football was, you couldn't do it. Like, Arkansas could never get a top 10 recruiting class. It was just never going to happen. And when the NIL came through, I was like, okay, this is your best chance now. This is your best chance to be able to go up against big boys and get you some big players, because a lot of these kids, not all of them, but a lot of them are going to just be looking at who's going to give me the biggest bag or who's going to be doing this, who's going to be doing that. And so here we are, was it 3 years into NIL and football, 3 or 4 years? And it's still the same discussion. It's still the same conversation. I'm like, no, that's not the way it should be. I understand some programs have more NIL than others. But like I've said, and like we've said, and like we've talked about, the NIL is not what has kept Arkansas from winning football games this season. It's not about the talent. Arkansas was good enough to beat Oklahoma State. They didn't. They were good enough to beat Texas A&M. They didn't. And now, even the LSU loss is not looking as good. I'm not saying that you were just as good out there, but
they're 6-4.
You were good. You were better than getting blown out by 28 points at home. Ole Miss, yeah, they were playing as good as anybody in the country. But you can't sit there and tell me that you were not good enough to keep them from having 6 school records on you because of NIL. Like, I don't buy that. I just don't. And so that was my pushback on it too, of the expectation of where it's at. I don't want to ever have a program. I don't want to ever have a sports program, even if it's not true, even if it is impossible. I never want to have a program that has a mentality of like, well, it could be worse. Or, hey, you could strive for this school over here that's fairly average. You can do that. I don't want to. That's not a mentality you should ever have, no matter the program.
I really like this comment here from Braden. He says, in a world where Indiana is willing to pay $8 million a year for 10 years for their coach, we are waiting for our head coach to lose enough to afford the buyout.
Correct.
100%. We're basically saying what we always said. Sam Pittman wants to leave Arkansas in a good spot, but we can't fire him until he has ruined it.
Hasn't been a really bad spot.
We're waiting until he loses enough to where it's going to be harder to move on for, like, whereas right now you could argue Arkansas is in a place of kind of stability. He even said, hey, the NIL is actually doing pretty well at Arkansas. So again, like, I don't know. And I get it. It costs money to fire a head coach. I get all that. But I think waiting until he's lost enough, completely lost the fan base, completely lost everything, it's only going to get harder. Arkansas should have learned this lesson when they cheaped out and didn't hire Lane Kiffin, which is another good point by our boy Heartbroken Hog, who says no reason we can't do what Ole Miss is doing. I need someone, whether it's, whoever, Marcello or anyone else, to just explain to me what the difference is between Arkansas and Ole Miss, and just in terms of program structure and what those two entities can accomplish. What does Ole Miss have that Arkansas doesn't? And I know people will say, oh, well, they have NIL. How did they get it? Seriously, they were in the poorest state in the country 4 hours away from Arkansas, and they have less program tradition than Arkansas. They've won less than Arkansas. I don't understand how Ole Miss. We can look at Ole Miss be a nationally relevant program going to the playoff, the favorite to win the SEC, and we're like, Arkansas can't accomplish that. I don't understand where that sentiment comes from.
Hey, maybe one year you can get to 9 wins, but don't do it early in your tenure because then people will be pissed if you don't repeat. That's kind of what we're hearing here. The other thing that really struck me about it was the stuff about how like negative fan base equals negative Sam Pittman, like how he's just so worn down from being beat up on by the fans and everything, and so like the answer is, yeah, well, just get that hip fix and then bring him back and he'll be able to rally that's not how this works. I don't think. Hell, they could have beat Texas and there still would have been a lot of people pissed off trying to get him out of here. So like, I don't know how you necessarily turn, the bus around once this is already happening. It's wild to me. It's like, hey, brace yourselves, people. Like Louisiana Tech's going to cover, like prepare for a dogfight here. And, but Sam will be back. So
that right there. And look, I look again, I really do I'm not trying to dog on Marcello, because I agree with what you're saying, Curtis. Like, he's getting his messages from other people and he's relaying it, and he does a damn good job. He's one of the best in the country at doing that. But that right there really rubbed me the wrong way. The whole, well, I'm telling you, I know everything's great at Arkansas and you got to keep Sam Pittman. You can't fire your head coach, but don't expect this cakewalk against Louisiana Tech, who's whatever, 3-6 or whatever. Yeah. And look, they do have a scrappy defense, but let's be effing for real, dude. Like that's if you're a Hog fan, like that probably should concern you, hearing a lot of the things that came from Brandon Marcello, because again, he's not making them up. He's getting that from very legitimate, real messages that are being relayed to him. So that should definitely strike the fear of God in you if you're a Hog fan.
Well, and I'll also throw in too, we've talked a lot about the fans and the basketball side of things and gone after the fans and everything. But if they keep Sam Pittman and there's really nothing in the offseason that does anything crazy, like it's not like they get a bunch of 5-star transfers, anything like that. Like it's just kind of status quo. And if you're the U of A or you whoever, and you get mad at fans for not being excited about football next season or buying up season tickets and all that, I'm going to be like, I got nothing for y'all. I'm siding with the fans. Don't get mad at them when they're pissed. They're upset with the way things are. They want change. Well, when you defy that and say, no, we're not changing, we're keeping it, and then next year you're sitting around like, oh, man, why isn't anybody pumped about this team? Where's the excitement? Why isn't anybody showing up to the games? Where is this? You're the one that did that because you knew what they wanted. You went against it knowingly, and you expect them to be pumped about it? Ain't going to happen. And that's my fear. And that's honestly the biggest thing about the Sam Pittman deal. I bring this word up a lot, but it's about energy. There's not going to be any energy in this program at all keeping Sam Pittman. Even if you beat Missouri and all that, maybe a little bit more, but there's just not going to be energy. And energy makes everything better. It makes the money coming in better. It makes the excitement better. It makes the intrigue better. It makes the concession stand food better. Like it just makes everything better. And if you don't have any energy, what are you doing? Why are you even doing what you're doing if you don't have energy in the program?
Well, look, I think this weekend is going to be interesting. And look, I don't think that the season is going to be determined by how many fans show up to the Louisiana Tech game. But again, we've said it a bunch. The attendance for football has been so high. They've had 4 of the top 10 attendances in program history. I wonder if this weekend, if it's, more like 60,000 people, maybe 58,000 people, like it's really a lowly attended game. If that's maybe the first time we're able to really have some of these conversations, because I think if you're Hunter Yurachek, you can hear people complaining about how, football program's ruined, but you're still making a ton of money seeing the fan base show up to all these games. You can hear about how, basketball attendance sucks, but we sold out all the season tickets. It isn't really his problem. Maybe if Saturday there really is like that, like you said, lack of energy, maybe he'll be like, okay, is this really sustainable? Or have we just been kind of like, I think he at this moment, I think they feel like they have the fan base kind of tricked a little bit where, people are still showing up to games. The Bobby Petrino thing worked in the offseason from a PR standpoint, because I think that's a big reason why people kind of got excited for this football season and were able to, show up at these games. I don't know if that's going to last forever. And so maybe if this weekend looks as rough as it potentially could, maybe that could start to get the ball rolling on some of this.
Rumor has it they're getting ready to kill it in the transfer portal. So
you bet. Then you better.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, I just this is all, man, this is crazy to me. And I just don't like hey, just give him one more year here, with that staff. And if it goes wrong, to make a move then. This was the one more year.
Literally.
I don't know.
And it played out flawlessly to the point where your program is still in a stable point, but nobody else fired their coach. Like, you have your pick of the litter. I really am just not sold that this is not the perfect time to make a big picture move.
I'll throw this in there too, which I know we've gone over. We appreciate everyone sticking around with us and hanging with us today.
Yeah.
But I cannot just I'm looking back to when it was the Jeff Long, Brett Bielema ending. There's nothing worse for a fan base and for apathy than a fan base not feeling like they have any say in what happens, where no matter what they want, they're being defied. There's nothing, because you feel like you have no control. You have no say, and that makes you just check out because you don't have that connection anymore. You don't have that actual direct connection with the program. And if this is the way they're going to go about it, and this is the options they're doing, whether it's your check or just the administration in general, you are flirting with it to where that suddenly is when everyone's going to turn on you quickly. And I don't care what anybody says. Coaches can win fans back. Athletic directors can't. I mean, it takes a lot to ever win a fan base back. And so they also have to keep that into consideration where it's like, you really want to play with fire here? You really want to take this approach right now with the fans, where they're at right now? You really want to risk that? Because I don't care what anybody says. They will make it known. Razorback fans have done it before. They will make it known that they are not happy. Because right now they're just saying it. They will do it next year. And you're going to lose all that money that you're needing for the revenue sharing and all that crap. You're going to lose a lot of it because fans aren't going to renew. Fans aren't going to show up. Fans aren't going to do it. And then where are you going to be? You're going to be wondering, well, how did this happen? Well, you did it to yourself because you wanted to play with fire and you wanted to go against the fans. And fans always get their way one way or the other. It's just how it is.
Well, and there's no doubt that the longer this plays out, the more Yurichek and Pittman are conjoined together, where especially if they bring him back for another year, then I think at that point it really is like he's going to be here as long as Pittman's going to be here. But I see a lot of people making comments that are like, well, what if they win 10 games next year? Well, what if they bring in a top transfer class? Well, what if they went out and go 8-5 or whatever? Guys, we're absolutely okay with that. These things are subject to change as always. Like, of course, you can always do well and change the circumstances. But we're just operating based on the world we live in right now, which, again, I still need to be convinced that now is not the perfect time to make some of these big picture moves.
Should be interesting the next few weeks.
Yeah.
Should be interesting.
I don't know if it's going to be interesting at all.
I will say it might not be that interesting.
Well, it's interesting from the perspective of how the fans will respond and push back.
That will be for sure.
That's what I'm saying is going to be interesting. Because there's going to be a statement. There is. There's going to be that official graphic from the University of Arkansas that Yurichek's going to tweet out. And the ratio for that, we may just dedicate a show to just reading the replies. I mean, it's going to be incredible.
You know what I would do if I was them? You guys know how, Andrew, I think you sent us in the group chat, you know how like at the bowling alleys, you throw a strike or whatever, and they have the crazy little graphics. Just have one of Sam Pittman rolling Larry the bowling ball, down the lane. And then it's like a message in a bottle, but it's the message that comes out of the hole of the bowling ball and unravels. And it's like, Hunter Yurichek, run it back.
I've never seen you toe the line so well, where you were referencing something very obscene that I sent you.
Correct.
You kept it pretty PC. That was pretty good.
I wouldn't out you like that, man.
Yeah, no. Can I just laugh at this hilarious comment? This is hilarious. This is where you want to be when Jesus comes back, making fun of poor old Sam Pittman. That gave me a good chuckle. And I appreciate Hickory Hog 94. We got a lot of Hog fans that were born in 94, it appears. A lot of March Madness conceptions going on.
That's our target demo. Gee, I wonder why there was a lot of conceptions during that run. A lot of happy Hog fans. But listen, you're going to have these next two games. I'll be curious to see when a statement gets made, but I think we all think that Sam Pittman's going to be back next season. I mean, it just feels like that's the inevitable thing. So how will you react, fans? How will you react? We've seen how you reacted when you getting called out for not showing up to games at Bud Walton. How are you going to react when the guy you want gone comes back for another year. I can't wait.
Somebody in the chat earlier said that fans aren't showing up for splashy Hall of Fame head coach hires for basketball, so maybe status quo is the way to go to keep people in attendance.
Hey, maybe it is. And by the way, I do want to say one last thing before we say goodbye for the day, because we have been going for damn near 2 hours, which is awesome.
Crazy.
I don't want what we're saying to be construed as anti-Pittman. I think you can make an argument that the best way for this to work out in Sam Pittman's favor is for there to be, for this to be kind of the end of the road, rather than waiting for him to completely lose control and start going 4-8 and again, because then it's going to be a lot uglier. Whereas this offseason, I think there's a path to them changing things and it not being ugly.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree there. Because next year, I don't care, guys. I honestly, truly believe next year you're going to be at best 6-6. Even that schedule next year, that's your best case scenario.
Yeah, that's a beast, man.
Yep. And so just you go set. If I'm with you, if you 7-5, like sound like George Costanza from Seinfeld, when you make a good joke that makes everyone laugh, and you just leave the room because you're like, I'm waiting on a high note. That's what you may need to just do, is be like, end on a high note and don't let it get worse before it gets better. And maybe the route.
Putting all your eggs in the next year basket is cool until you whip out a stinker season like they did last year.
Yeah. Surely that won't happen. Totally. I mean, he's the
Whip her
guy.
out. Whip her out.